The championship may have been wrapped, but pride is on the line. For Finns, the opportunity to lock out every win this season is on the table. For the rest of the world, we'll have to do something to try and stop this Nordic nation's onslaught of speed. Let's see if maybe the chaos of Canada can change that as we get ready to watch round 11 of the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and joining me in the booth is Roush Racing driver Joey Atterbury. Behind the scenes is our director, Robert O'Brien, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Circuit Gilles Villeneuve was introduced to the F1 calendar in the late 70s and has become a staple ever since. Let's get a closer look at it with our track guide. Welcome to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Host of the Canadian Grand Prix for over 40 years, this track's popularity among fans refuses to wane. Although it has gone through a few alterations in its history, the nature of its layout has remained pretty much the same. That nature, of course, is that its 14 turns are mostly chicanes, split up by long straights to add up to a 2.7-mile street course-like canyon of a track. These 4.3 kilometers are mainly made up of actual streets on the man-made Ile Notre Dame, though portions are specifically built for the racetrack. But whether or not fans consider it a true street course, the close barriers that line the majority of the track don't care what you think. Places like the exit of Turn 4 and Turn 9 frequently collect the greedy. But these pale in infamy to the notorious Wall of Champions. Named for its penchant to collect F1 World Champions, the corner itself is called Quebec. Regardless, it's a finicky and tight chicane with a critical corner exit, so drivers are tempted into edging the car as close as they dare to the concrete. Despite the numerous heavy braking zones, passing can be difficult at times for certain types of cars. Often, attrition or cut course penalties play a bigger part in who finishes where. While sports cars and NASCAR have both made stops here, this place is mainly known for its history with Formula One. Named after what is easily Canada's most popular driver in the International Open Wheel Series, this semi-temporary circuit looks like it's actually here to stay for a long, long time. We're in another situation, Joey, where we have a car that is actually raced on this track in the Vintage Series.
It's an awesome racetrack, maybe even a little understated. Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Long straightaways, very slow chicanes. That is the name of the game. 13 turns, 2.71 miles in length. And look at this place. It is filled with passing opportunities. Kicks right off turn 1, great passing opportunity, but you really got to be careful how you approach the 2-3 complex and putting the power down. Turns 3 and 4, the first real true chicane, that is another passing opportunity, especially on the first lap. Things get narrow after that. Little bit of a concrete wall section. Another turn 6 big passing opportunity, but I think the biggest and the best, probably turn 10. Going into that hairpin all the way on that right side of the track map down there. You can really use different entries on there, but it's putting the power down. You have to be really careful in these Lotus 79 cars. They don't make downforce at those tiptoe speeds. So put the power down gently all the way down the Casino Straight, and we are going to be highlighting the Wall of Champions all race long. Stay off of that. Give a little bit of a barrier. If you flirt too much, it will end your day.
And it's done that for a lot of people. Well, right now our champion is Partanen, though, who has taken the points lead and will not be able to be overtaken from there. Topi Kortaniemi is now fighting for second in the championship with Jukka Tolinen. You've got Juho Raina, who has been kind of chasing all of them, but he's a little bit too far back at this stage. If anything, I think he may have already locked down fourth, even with this being the penultimate round. So he's so far ahead of everybody else and can't catch anybody in front of them. So not much drama up at the top there, but still you can see plenty to fight for from fifth on down. F2 championship, completely different story.
And I know that Sam Ryman has been really invested into this championship. I believe he's not here today. He had said that. Bjorn Ackerman, Sam Ryman, tied in that F2 driver standing. So be curious how it plays out. But really include the top four. Shady Ahmad only 8 points back. Peter Konechny 16 points back. So incredibly close here between the top four competitors. Thomas Silbernagel kind of standing on an island all by himself, but can move up in the last couple weeks and then really tightens up from 6th through 10th. Andrew Thomas, Miguel Moreland, Keith Herner, Cam Porter, Gregory Woods, all of those positions can still shift around.
And as for today's race itself, 23 laps around this track with an open setup on the car. Got to imagine a lot of drivers going to try and make it very fast in a straight line, considering, like you heard Joey mention, you can't really do much to get downforce in the slow corners. No spare car if you wind up hitting the wall, which is going to be very easy to do here, so watch out for it. Drive-through penalty at 17 incidents, at a DQ at 25. Not something at a sort of hybrid street circuit that you typically worry about here, but there are so many chicanes, it can be easy to go off track and rack those up. But before then, you'll probably be worried about the slowdown penalty you're going to accrue from that one. Partsinen is on the provisional pole right now, but it is tight once again, Joey, 0.03 of a second.
I'm seeing that, and Jukka Tolvanen is a little bit off the pace, honestly. He's about 0.6 right now, and Partanen versus Korteniemi, this is kind of what we've seen the last half of the season. It has really swung Pauli's way, but I'm curious, Joe. This is a low downforce setup. This kind of tends towards Pauli and Jukka's driving style. However, the last time out, it was Topi at VIR that really went with that low downforce set. I'll be curious to see what they come with today.
Indeed, and well, I mean, as you typically see, Tolvanen is currently third, but I think I just saw him park on the racetrack, so Tolvanen is done with qualifying. Gernot Friesche into fourth. He's about 0.7 off of Partanen. Can he do anything to maybe jump Jukka Tolvanen here on this second lap for him as we follow Topi Korteniemi down the Casino Straight along the rowing lake? This was originally used for the Olympics back in the 60s. Is why they have that rowing lake along the left-hand side. Big counter steer, though, through Quebec.
I don't think that's going to result in a fast lap time. I see him actually leading time. Yep, about 1/10 of a second slower than what he was able to put down earlier. He'll stay in that P2 spot, jump back to Juho Raina in that same exact area, coming up to this final chicane, flirt with the wall of champions, but got to be careful on that throttle, unlike what we saw from Topi.
And you know who is thriving here today? The controller king, Phil Reed, bumped it up to third. I mean, you hold it in a straight line for most of the time, and then you have to do quick flicks through the chicane. So that worked out well for him. Juho improved up to fourth position ahead of Steve Bycroft. Friesche, second lap is a 26.3 just now, jumps up to fifth.
It's a good second lap. And this car right here, this blue and white car of Peter Konechny, I see him tracking about 0.2 to the good on his current lap right now. We'll see if he can jump up. He's currently sitting 10th on the board. As long as he can go through this final chicane, it should move him up a couple spots. Yeah,
Tolan and Williams very tight together, along with Rodriguez Hoglar there in front of them. So we could see a change as high as 7th. 126.4 is indeed going to put him right into 7th.
I've been noticing, Joe, this second lap on these cars, that's really where the money lap comes into play. And check this one out. Jukka Tolvanen, I'm not sure. I don't think that he actually can put down a lap right here. You see him way off. I think he's just getting some extra practice in, but you got to find, or I guess go down all the way. 9th place is where Jukka is.
Yeah, that first lap being his only timed lap, I'm pretty certain, is going to really hurt him today. He's going to struggle to try and get up to Topi Korteniemi unless he can maybe sneak through a few cars at the start, which, considering the chaos we often see in that first chicane on the first lap, is not impossible, but he'll have to really tiptoe his way past maybe a few cars as he goes through the final chicane. And again, since he restarted his lap, this one shouldn't count. And yeah, he's slowing down on his way to the finish line anyways. So that means our grid is now set. Nobody else able to set a time from here. And Pauli Partanen has taken another 2 bonus points for the pole position over Topi Korteniemi. Can he beat him once again, even though he's already taken the championship? Phil Reed is going to see if maybe he can finally stop the Finnish dominance, being the only non-Finn to win this season, maybe here today, starting from third. and Juho Raine will be starting from 4th, another Finn. Gernot Friesche is going to be in at P5 with Steve Bycroft to his outside in the 6th position. Peter Konieczny with an excellent second lap jumps himself up into 7th. Pablo Rodriguez Hoglar will be in the 8th spot. Jukka Tolinen with only a single lap, only good enough for 9th. He'll be flanked by Paul Williams.
Then in 11th place comes Dylan Freckleton. I noticed Dylan also only put down 1 lap time. Have to keep an eye on that number 8 car. AJ Roper starting out in the 12th position. Shady Ahmad on row 7 will share it with Daniel Banker in 14th. Then we have Barry West in 15th. John Olson in 16th. Jean-Francois Boscus in 17th. Miguel Moreland will start in 18th. Kostas Zafiris in 19th. And Ian Haycox is in the 20th position. Just a couple more cars down here. Cam Porter did put down a lap time. He'll start in 21st. And then comes the cars that did not set a qualifying time and will be gridded by iRating. Jason Clapper and then Ellis Spice.
I think we may have had an explanation. Jukka Tolinen just typed into the chat, I guess wind got me this time. Must have maybe been blown off a little bit through one of the corners. And, well, if you're off by just an inch here, sometimes it can mean a lap deleted by clipping the wall. So you can see we've got a little bit of wind, but it is quite cool, which might explain why the second lap is the one that you want around here today. Hopefully that wind doesn't change too much and it can stay consistent for the drivers, Joey, because that's going to be really rough and tumble if it's gusting around.
Now, you mentioned the water right next to the straightaway. I know they do a ton of sailboats out there, so maybe Jukka had his mind out there looking at the sailboats rather than the racetrack. Maybe that's why the lap time didn't come together. And then, hey, you know what? It is kind of windy out there. But no, it is. 12 miles an hour is enough to really blow the cars around. So you're going to have to kind of see how it all settles in. One thing to note, Joe, there's a couple cars, Jukka, Freckleton, they're back there. They're going to be coming up through the field. They didn't set that second qualifying lap.
Going to be slightly out of position, as there is our 2 cameras here today. We've got Cam Porter and Ian Haycox ready to go from a little bit farther down in the field, obviously, trying to work their way forward. We'll see what they can do today. And we wait patiently for Pauli Partanen to rock up on the grid along with Tolinen and Williams. Looks like Williams just got himself out there. There's our pole sitter. And we are ready to go for the penultimate round here in the Sunday Grand Prix Series. The engines start to rev. The lights come up. Who is going to be able to take it down in the first corner first? It looks like it's a decent start for Kortiniemi as the green flag waves, or for Partanen, up on pole position. Heavy dive by Phil Reed down, and somebody gets absolutely taken out into the runoff. I think Konieczny, one of those.
Yeah, it was Jukka Tolinen that ultimately paid the price, but it was Dylan Freckleton that made a crazy bonsai dive bomb move into turn 1. But it's Pauli Partanen, Topi Kortiniemi feeding through this first chicane section on the way to the second.
Most of them single file pretty quickly. A few side-by-side races in the back, including down into turn 6. Once again, Freckleton involved in that one with Pablo Hoglar side-by-side with him. AJ Roper going to see what he can do from behind them, giving watch. And as they fly into turn 8, looks like everybody's going to once again go back single file.
Yeah, it really is kind of an escape of these front 5 right now. Pauli all the way down to Gernot Friesche. Check in with Pablo Hoglar back here, letting Dylan Freckleton go by. I mentioned that Dylan, he didn't do that first or the second qualifying lap. He's putting that speed on display, albeit with some elbows out attitude on the first lap.
I don't know if we saw it on screen, but AJ Roper spun his wheels up coming out of turn 9 too. So I think he lost a bunch of positions as we watch Pablo chase on Freckleton down towards the Wall of Champions. Jukes out to the right, but doesn't actually make a move. Oh, he's heading into pit lane.
I wonder, sometimes, Joe, I know I am guilty of this. You forget to change to your race setup from your quali setup.
No, he has a black flag. I wonder if we got either a couple drivers cutting a corner or if there was a jump start. I'm checking Pablo's start here. Yeah, oh my goodness, he had a huge jump start. He went way too early, and now he has paid the price. Also a black flag for Zafiris, and he also got a jump start. So 2 drivers maybe a little bit too eager on the throttle today.
Got to be careful. sometimes you don't always practice those standing starts, Joe, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's not actually a way to just go and practice those starts without doing a race session or an AI race session, if you will. So sometimes you get a little confused by the lights, get a little confused by the pedals, but it caught a couple drivers out today.
I know in my past I've made sure to keep my foot off the throttle and wait for the lights to come up before I even put it near it, so that I remember it's not when the lights come up, it's when they go out that you have to worry about. So maybe a few drivers just forgetting that one. We had a spin back here as we're going to go by in Cam Porter. Paul Williams off to the side there in the yellow machine. Cam right now, let's see, where is he on the track? Looks like he has moved himself all the way up to 14th already.
Great start, great couple laps for Cam Porter right now, and really right in the thick of the action, chasing down Miguel Moreland right in front of him. He also has Jean-Francois Boscus filling up his mirrors in the back, but and really, Joe, this looks like about a 7-car train going through there.
It is indeed, and I wonder if we're going to be seeing quite a bit of that. Like you said, there's these long straights that could tow one another along into those heavy braking zones, so they want to try and stay nice and tight to one another, as that was Clapper versus Boscus getting close, fighting for 15th position.
We usually think of Jason Clapper as that big mover, but it's Cam Porter that's got the +7 positions and in front of Jason Clapper right now. I think Jason has Cam Porter in the targets. Runs a little bit wide through there, probably dealing with a little bit of dirty air, also kind of presenting his car to Cam, saying, hey, I'm here knocking at the door.
And Boscus there in the background looking like he might be under threat from Konechny too, as they get close coming down into the braking for turn 8. Peter slices up the inside with a textbook move. That gives him 16th.
Yeah, really good outbraking move, and like you said, just kind of sliced his way onto the line. Now he focuses on the 2 red cars, the red and white cars right in front of him. Jason Clapper, Cam Porter. We're watching out the back of Cam Porter. I love the individual throttle body stacks. That sings to my heart.
They certainly look very raw on this car. It always struck me as interesting how long it was that you could just see parts of the engine poking out of F1 machines until into the 80s in some cases, but down into the braking once again for the Wall of Champions. They're both going to stay out of it, but Porter looks vulnerable as Clapper moves off to the left-hand side. Cam doesn't fight it. He lets him have the position, and through goes Jason.
Yeah, and he slides right into spot, and actually Cam Porter now under threat from that blue car. That's Peter Konechny right behind him, so you have to be careful. When you open the door, you can't leave it open too long, because there's going to be another hungry player at the table.
Certainly looks like it today. Like you said, we have that long train kind of forming here, but we're looking a little farther ahead to Shady Ahmad. He's just ahead of Daniel Banker, who slips up a little bit coming out of turn 7 as they fly down the backstretch along the riverside. They'll break under the bridge for turn 8 and can't seem to make that time back up. This time we'll have to try and work a little bit harder as he goes. This is behind AJ Roper, who I mentioned lost some spots, but is still actually doing pretty good and is up 4 positions from the start.
I know that Shady Ahmad's car is just making our producer so happy back here. All of that sponsor lettering, he is just jumping up and down. He can't contain himself, Joe.
I mean, are you surprised that an Irishman is happy to see Guinness anywhere as we hop on board? Looking back, Pauli Partanen taking fastest lap. That's another 2 bonus points in this series.
Looking out the back now, loving those individual throttle stacks. And I'm going to get a little nerdy here as things have kind of calmed down, Joe, but those throttles, you mentioned how they were always protruding outside of the car. They're just trying to grab as much of that atmosphere, as much of that air as they possibly could, until we kind of realized the better we can control that atmosphere, the better we can control the temperatures and the flow going into the engine.
Makes sense. I always wondered about why that was, but looks like Boscus has had a problem. And that one is at turn 3, unfortunately. He's going to get it turned back around, but I fear he may have hit the wall as we're checking in on Juho Raina. I mentioned he could try and make up some positions. Well, he absolutely did. He's up to 4th already.
Chasing that controller king right in front of him, the black and red car of Phil Reed. He's actually in a really good spot. I'm not quite sure if he's close enough to be able to jut out at the final chicane here, but let's take a look at the speeds. I'm seeing already a 5-mile-an-hour advantage. He will be close enough. He's going to dip out to the right side. Deep on the brakes, contact between the two. Phil Reed goes sliding. Juho Raina stays on the track.
You could see he had to avoid that sausage curb to try and re-enter the circuit there. Kind of lucky on that situation. I was surprised that Phil did not defend, and then he just seemed like he turned in like Juho wasn't there.
And honestly, it was a crazy save. Probably only a controller type of save with that slide and everything. And I agree. I think if he didn't look in his mirrors, he probably thought that Juho was so far back entering that straightaway, there is no way he could close that much.
Well, he did, and unfortunately they came together, but at least both are still carrying on at this stage. And they got to watch out because Gernot Frischa in that blue car is starting to approach. And we know he is a savvy driver, which seems to get stronger towards the end of the race. We're not at the end yet, but certainly not someone that you'd want approaching. Is a big slide there for Phil heading into 8 and 9. Almost puts him over the curb.
Yeah, he's got to be careful. Gernot Frischa is definitely within striking range, especially for what we saw from the casino straightaway last time. We'll see if this white and blue Tyrrell sponsored car can get in that slipstream, kind of draw him back in. The other one that I was noticing, Joe, a little bit further back, you had said Paul Williams had that early spin. He's finally caught back up to the field, starting to make his way back through.
That very beautiful Tyrrell livery, which we ironically, or maybe appropriately, first noticed at Imola, with it being on the rear wing, is continuing to chase here along the front stretch. This time, fastest lap going to Topi Kortiniemi. Doesn't want to let Pauli have all the fun, even though he's been leading much of this race. In fact, checking in on them, they are still relatively close. They're about a second apart here, Joey. So I don't think this is over, and you can see that Topi is pushing, kicking up the dust as he just brushes the wall.
And I'm happy to see this because I was noticing they were up about 1.1, 1.2 seconds between the two of them. And I just wondered, did Pauli Partinen come with his game face on and is going to run away from everything today? But no, Topi Kortiniemi has responded. He says, I have the same pace as you. And if you try to run away, I'm going to chase you down. I'm going to stay in the draft. I'm going to bother you all race long.
Well, we saw him in the Lotus 49s. We saw him at Camel, and while he wasn't able to win in Lotus, he wasn't able to win in Camel, I should say. He was able to win in Lotus, and he's trying to at least make 2 out of the 3. He does this sometimes where he will try and get the triple crown over the course of the weekend. I think there's a scant few drivers that have won all 3 as the 11 gets all kinds of sideways out of turn 9.
Joe, we need to stay right here for about a lap because Paul Williams has made his way up through these 3 cars, has fallen back down. Peter Konechny in the same boat. Pablo Rodriguez Oglar in it. Cam Porter is leading this train. This has been a very, very busy and amusing pack.
Cam Porter at times is actually quite good at defending. He tends to stay cool under pressure most times, although he has been known to crack if you push hard enough, as he's going to break very early and actually stacks up the field behind him. But he gets a better exit than everybody. I think he pulled a blinder on them on that one.
And you know what? There's nothing wrong with what Cam Porter did. And now it's Pablo and Peter going side by side, almost gets into the back of Cam Porter. That just goes to your point. Cam is being a little bit cautious on those brake zones, but where it benefits him is the corner exit. He can concentrate on that, put the power down, and drive away from these other cars. So they have to understand that and approach as necessary.
Well, I think Pablo picked up on that. Look at him get a good exit himself this time. And this time he's not taking no for an answer as he outbrakes him down into turn 6. Slides a little bit wide, but he is safe and he is through. Pablo moves up to 15th. Now Cam has 2 more cars behind him to deal with.
Yeah, Peter lined up first in the blue and white car, and then Paul Williams in the yellow car. And remember, Paul had that early spin, so I think that yellow car, the 4th car line. Oh, and Pablo gets into the wall on corner exit there. That's going to affect his run down this little mini straightaway. I don't think Cam's close enough, but I wonder what kind of damage he's got. Oh, Cam Porter with a big lockup.
Almost 3 wide down into Lapingle. They'll manage to make it out the other side. Konechny had to get on the brakes himself, and now Paul Williams wants to see if he can maybe overtake him on this one. Look at the grin ear to ear. I think he's glad he just got away with it. Tries to guard down the inside, shaking his head, not happy with what he's seen, as Konechny is going to be able to get through this time into the Wall of Champions, but maybe a better exit once again for Cam Porter. He's going to try and fight back.
This is it. Do you go charging into the corner, or do you go charging out of the corner? And Cam Porter is taking advantage of the straightaways, but it's Paul Williams now trying to poke his way around the outside. Cam, like you said, a little bit unamused with that squeeze down the straightaway from that blue car right in front of him, but hey, he left enough room. Everybody is still racing.
I wonder how much longer everybody's still going to be racing, because they've been fierce here. They're having fun, but there's been some sketchy moves out there. Peter Konechny now leading this little group as Pablo's run away from them. Instead, the 4th place has been taken up by Ian Haycox.
And Ian had a problem himself earlier as well. So this is another faster car joining the back end of this battle. Cam Porter is going to have his mirrors and hands full today. He's going to be out of breath at the end of this one.
So Ian Haycox, who typically we see over in the Camel Series, has been starting to show up more and more here in the 79s. And he sees a bit of a pass attempt from Paul Williams down inside of Porter and just kind of elbows him out of the way on the way out of the turn. Our 2 camera cars now together, and this time, once again, a car squeezed off.
And this time, it is Ian Haycox giving that sigh, saying, hey, don't squeeze me off the racetrack over here. So Cam and Ian, our 2 camera cars, are now the ones that are duking it out. A little bit of an elbows out from Paul Williams down there at that hairpin. Joe, that's also where he had his earlier spin. I think he's still kind of feeling it out.
Thankfully, I don't think there's any ill feelings. I have the radio on my sim here, so I can hear the drivers talk. And we actually had a situation where I could see hear what we saw Ian say there. He just gave a "oh, hello" to Cam Porter, and to his credit, Cam actually apologized for the move. I don't think he intended to squeeze him there.
Good old camaraderie between all of the competitors on the racetrack out here as we check back in. This is the battle for the 7th place position. Dylan Freckleton chasing down Steve Bycroft out here, and Dylan has been working his way forward, a little bit sloppy on the first lap or so, but kind of settled in here.
Yeah, he's still giving chase. Kind of impressed considering the crazy start that Dylan had. I wasn't sure if you meant that he was the one that kind of started it, chucked the car in first. Was Dylan the cause of that accident?
Unfortunately, yes. Remember, it was himself and Yuka that started way far back, and going down into turn 1, Dylan got the car stopped, but it was at the expense of shoving a couple of other cars out of the way.
A real shame. I'm sure he probably feels a little guilty about that one. Dylan's not the one to try and race that way, as we check in with Jason Clapper on John Olson now. Also, a huge thank you, Michael DeTurk, our stats man, who always comes to the rescue. There has only been one driver to get all 3 races in the same weekend on the broadcast races. That's Jamie Fluke, which is no surprise. But both Rob Olenek and Michael DeTurk have taken 2 out of 3. I'm pretty sure that there are others who have. Topi Kortanimi most likely has done something similar at times, as things are getting tight here, and Olson can't defend. Coming down into turn 6, there goes Jason Clapper.
Mentioned turn 6 is a passing opportunity, but like Jason Clapper just showed, you really have to be up on the wheel and in position. But then he squirreled that back end of the car trying to put the power down. Olson actually had an opportunity, but realized Jason is probably on the move out here, just has to gather it back up and keep moving.
I have to say, I was kind of looking at John Olson's paint scheme there. Definitely an interesting one that he's got going on, sort of psychedelic looking tropical theme going on his machine in that number 7. Not too bad for him today, up 4 from where he began this race, but obviously lost one of those just this lap, as I think Miguel Moreland may have just had a problem behind them, because I just saw him lose some positions.
Yeah, I see that he's fallen back behind Cam Porter. You see Ian Haycox also trying to make his way around. Wonder if there's some sort of damage on this car, but it will be side by side into the final chicane. Miguel Moreland gives way. Ian Haycox will take that, 18th place position.
So So we're going to take a look at the replay. This is down into Lapingle, and since he was slow off, I'm going to take a guess that maybe he spun it coming out of the corner. Let's see if I'm right here. And yeah, what do you know? Rear wheels said no way.
We talked about it really, really early. Those slow corners, you have to tiptoe around. The cars don't make any downforce, and it kind of plays with your mind. You're used to all of this grip, being able to drive this car anywhere. And then when you're doing 25 miles an hour, it's like you're driving on ice all of a sudden. It is odd.
It's always interesting to me as well, which car and track the drivers consider some of the hardest out here. And apparently some of the drivers have been saying that the 79s is the most difficult to try and take victories in. I would think the Lotus 49, since those are so ultra niche compared to a lot of other cars. But I guess that there's just so many high I-rating drivers in this series that this proves to be difficult to crack.
And I think it's just quirky enough. You know, it still uses the H pattern. It still uses the 3 pedals down there. You don't have all of these super fancy adjustments to kind of save you, if you will. So I think that it's just quirky, just raw enough that you have to want to drive this car rather than just hop into a GT3 car and go.
That's a good point. And Dylan Freckleton, who has been in this car for a long time, along with Steve Bycroft, both veterans in this series. Dylan's been kind of hunting him here for a few laps, hasn't seemed to be able to get quite close enough. They are about 5 seconds behind Gernot Friesche currently, so not likely to catch him unless he makes a mistake, especially at about halfway through the event already. So Dylan may be focused on just cracking into the top 6 before this one's over, but he's definitely going to have to get closer than this. Doesn't gain anything on this half of the lap.
As I was scanning the field, checking in on everybody, I did notice that last lap, unfortunately, Daniel Banker had an issue. Jason Clapper and him were going side by side. Jason actually made a really nice move around the outside, but unfortunately, Daniel Banker spun and lost a couple positions from it. I do see him back out on the racetrack, but definitely lost a little bit of track position. As we check back in with our lead, it has closed up, Joe.
It's about half of what it was before, down to about 0.5 of a second between Partanen and Korteniemi. These two have faced off pretty much the entire season and have been quite close on pace at times. Today seems to be one of those days. They've dropped Juho Raina by about 7.5 seconds, it looks like. So they've just kind of scampered off up to the front. And I'm willing to bet that Partanen is pushing as hard as he can to keep Topi behind him.
And I wonder what the attitudes are underneath the helmet here, because these two have been kind of the closest in terms of the points championship for the whole season, right? However, if we remember back to Imola, I believe it was Topi that kind of caused a little bit of a mess up there at the lead. Then at VIR, it was Yuka that caused a little bit of a mess with Topi. All those things, they come up, they boil over eventually, and here we are, Topi versus Pauli on the Casino Straight.
He's got a very good run. This is, I think, the closest we've seen him for some time, but he doesn't go for it. They bound over those curbs. Kind of impressive considering you want to keep the floor of this car as close to the pavement as you can to keep the downforce in it. But they're willing to flirt with some of these sausage curbs, it looks like, as they head back into turn 1 once again. And now Topi takes the fastest lap once more.
And I could be completely wrong here. It can be a little bit deceiving at some of these tracks, but the way that Topi is attacking the racetrack, it tells me he probably has one click of wing more than Pauli Partanen. He can really take the early line going into some of these corners, hug around the apex, and put the power down. But that means it's going to be really, really difficult to pass Pauli if he does have that slightly higher wing angle.
This is why I appreciate having your sharp eye next to me on these races, because these drivers do think down to those little minimal changes on the setup, little changes to their line. This is very high level stuff here in the Lotus 79s, especially at the top level. These are 1 and 3 on iRating, and that is nearly 7,000 for Topi Korteniemi. Pauli Partanen at about 6,400 iRating. That is getting up to pro license level stuff for most drivers, especially on the roadside and these open wheelers, as we get a very good run, and Topi looks much, much closer, but again, he doesn't go for a move.
He was about 4 miles an hour faster on that straightaway, And I think, Joe, the reason why he didn't go for that move, you have to be fully alongside Pauli Partonen in order to make that move. Otherwise, Pauli's just going to go to his last brake marker possible and outbrake you. I think he's got to be closer.
Yeah, it could be that he just feels like this not a safe move, especially this early in the race. Is once again, you'll see them just brush the wall. Don't worry when you see that smoke. That's something somewhat recent on iRacing that has kind of developed over the past couple seasons, where if you get close to the wall, sometimes the nature of the internet will think that maybe they've touched it, but they haven't actually. And it certainly will kick up some dust and smoke. But they've been getting frighteningly close to the walls for much of this race, and it could so easily bite them. I've seen many a driver look like they were on it, potentially in for a win, and it all fall apart in a single turn.
So checking back in a little bit further down, battle for 11th place, John Olsen holding off Pablo Rodriguez Oglar currently. A little bit further back in the track, it's amazing how far Pauli Partonen and Topi Korchinjaimi are in terms of track position ahead of some of these cars.
Yeah, they're easily half a lap ahead here, and we're only on lap 16 of a 23-lap race. As they get close coming down into turn 8, Pablo really wants this position. Remember, he lost some spots earlier on, and he spins up the tires a little bit there out of turn 9. He's down 4 from where he began, and he's certainly doing everything he can to try and get by John Olsen. This time, he sends one up the inside, but will there be a fight back down the Casino Straight from John?
Very well driven by Pablo, but you are right. When you go early in, it just leaves you vulnerable on the exit. So here comes John Olsen, and he is actually on the driver's line. He has the momentum. He even clears Pablo before the brake zone.
Few miles an hour faster in a straight line than that red and white machine somehow keeps it out of the wall, as Pablo Oglar is certainly giving it everything. Jason Clapper is as well. He goes by Shady Ahmad for 9th.
Yeah, great move from Jason Clapper, and definitely Pablo with the style points. I'll give you style points, but trust me, style points don't make you fast on the racetrack. They just make you look cool.
And I'm realizing, I think Pablo started from pit lane, I'm realizing now. Looking at my time and in scoring, the giveaway is that he has, as he's going to go down to the inside once again. This time, does he have a better move? Looks like he does. Through 6 and 7, he is going to dash away along the backstretch. But if you see a driver with time on the lane but not in the box in a race like this where you usually don't expect a pit stop, that to me says that he started from the pits.
Trying to work his way up. And oh no, I just noticed Paul Williams and Daniel Banker just came together in one of the chicanes. Unfortunately, Daniel Banker, this is the same exact chicane that he had problems with Jason Clapper earlier. This time, I think it is much, much bigger for that car. Paul Williams, though, was able to get back up into 13th. This is still that battle a little bit further up the racetrack.
Yeah, Banker's not been having the best of days. We'll see if we can get that spooled up on the replay, because unfortunately it fell victim to open wheelers just not liking to make side-to-side contact. Second lap in a row we've seen Pablo do that one.
I love it. You know, I shouldn't be making the comment anymore, because it seems to be his thing coming out of the corner. Likes to show off a little bit, and hey, as long as you can control it, go for it.
I wonder what that's going to do to the rear tires, though. They're big
It'll
tires.
Destroy them.
Yeah, he's not going to be happy by the end of this race, which is getting close here as we take a look at the number 4 of Steve Bycroft, who is still battling with Dylan Freckleton. Nothing much has changed other than Dylan looks just slightly closer than what we saw before. Is he finally able to set him up here?
See what kind of exit he can really get. He is close enough, but I want to watch the top speeds here. We were talking about our leaders and having the wing angle difference, and if you are trailing a car, following a car, and you don't have the higher top speed, this is what happens. You physically get stuck, and where can you make a pass?
Especially on a track like this, where you don't have a lot of those fast corners to help you out. Dylan Freckleton, though, does get a pretty good exit. He's going to stay tight up to the back of him, but look at the defensive move there by Steve Bycroft into the corner. He knows all he has to do is just slightly cover off any sort of potential move, and he could probably hold Dylan back.
That's a great way to put it, is that you don't necessarily need to go deeper on the brakes. You don't need to go all the way to the inside. You just need to posture yourself in a place that kind of persuades that car behind, you know what, now is not the opportunity. I'll look again elsewhere.
Yeah, just makes it difficult. He's going to have to do an extreme move, most likely, if he keeps that up to try and go by. Meanwhile, Topi Kortaniemi still within about 4 to 3 tenths behind our leader, catching bit by bit, hand over fist, but cannot seem to make the move. It seems that Joey believes he needs to be side by side to truly make an effective pass here, and we haven't seen him manage that quite yet. What does he have underneath him to be able to put himself in the right position?
And watching these two cars, if I can pick a possible weakness that I see from our leader, Joe, and it's not even a weakness because he hasn't shown it yet, but his line coming out of the Wall of Champions, that final chicane, it's starting to flirt more and more with that tire bundle. That could be front tire wear, that could just be lapse in concentration, but if Pauli Partanen doesn't realize that, it could cause lift off the throttle and an opportunity for the car behind.
And he's got to keep his eyes peeled for that sort of situation happening here. Again, it's just themselves. Juho Rainen now 10 seconds behind them, just has not been able to keep pace whatsoever and capitalize. We come back instead now to Bycroft versus Freckleton. Did look like Dylan was starting to get a bit close for a moment, but maybe he's suffering from some of that dirty air in these few places where they do have a fast corner.
I think if you're Dylan Freckleton and if you are struggling to get that top speed to pass, you just have to force the next driver off of the racing line. So Steve, right in front of him, you got to get him to change up his line a little bit. Maybe poke the nose down the inside, even though you're not going to make the move. Just try to move that number 4 off of the racing line so you can start to do something different.
So far, no dice, although we might want to head back to Topi here soon because he's getting it down to about 0.2 of a second now as they come into the first corner. Again, still not side by side, down into the Senate S, but I think that may have been the closest I've seen him into turn 1 in some time.
Pretty much dead even in terms of the performance from these two drivers. I'm looking at fast lap over here, Joe. 0.02 of a second is what separates their raw speed right now.
Certainly looks like it's going to come down to the tiniest of mistakes, the littlest opening that Topi needs to see before he can really get a true chance to try and pass Pauli Partanen. And again, the championship is done. They have nothing to worry about at this stage other than who takes the win. It is all or nothing here. Even the second place fight with Jukka Tolvanen, well, Jukka DNF'd on the first lap of this race. So Topi, I mean, at worst, he'll finish a couple positions ahead of Jukka. So really doesn't have to fret about making himself vulnerable in that fight. Here, he is solely focused on the number 3.
And, you know, shout out to Jukka Tolvanen. He kind of fell off in terms of performance on the last half of this season, but definitely ended this race way too early, not to his own fault. So unfortunate to not see the other white and blue car out here, definitely.
Yeah, he's been a bit unlucky this season. He has made a few of his own mistakes, no doubt, as they go by one of our lapped cars. In fact, one of our first lapped cars of this race, Ellis Spice, letting them through here. We haven't really mentioned it. This is top split. They have 2 splits running right now here in the Lotus 79. So this is all your fastest drivers currently racing one another. Ellis Spice made it in, but the pace is so fast with these top guys as they go by. Whoa, that was Hoglar right there that they just lapped. And he is off the track. What has happened?
Not exactly sure. It looks like Pablo was running by himself. Now, these curbs are very tall in this section, but no, it was not the curbs. It was just simply too much speed and some big old tank slapping.
And apologies, he was not lapped. I thought that was turns 3 and 4, but that was awful close. I think that those cars could see him better than what we could see from that angle. It was just the tree kind of in the way. And now was when Partanen wanted to try and make it go, but unfortunately just wasn't close enough and maybe tried too hard.
And this is going to be really interesting, Joe. I've lost concentration over here, but look, we are coming to the white flag, and that mistake out of Topi, that is huge with only 1 lap remaining.
Wow, that is costly. He was so close to him for many laps here at the end, and it took him a while to get to that position. 9/10, I just don't know if he's going to have enough unless Pauli either slows himself up to manage the race or makes a mistake. And it's rare that you see Pauli Parton, and not impossible, as we've seen this season, but I would be wholly shocked if we saw him completely slip up here on the final lap.
Now, we do have a lapped car right in front, actually 2 lapped cars, depending on the pace. Something can still happen for Topi. If Pauli gets checked up even just the slightest bit, it could put him back in striking range.
Here's the good news, though. It is Ian Haycox, who's a very experienced and polite driver. I don't think he is going to put himself in a bad position with them. And in fact, they're going to be coming up to him, I believe, on the rowing straight. So I think he should have a good opportunity to kind of let them by.
Yes, you are right, but I'm just trying to be my best Hollywood scriptwriter over here.
I get you. And I'm not even, well, okay, yeah, it looks like he is going to try and let them through, because I wondered if maybe Ian would try and finish all the laps of the race and not get lapped, but no, he doesn't want to become a part of this. He'll let both of them by. Not really an impact, unfortunately, because Partonen still about 7/10 ahead. A practically immaculate race from the number 3 today. Partonen already champion, but he'll gather up another victory here today in Canada.
Topi Kortiniemi crosses the line in that second place. We have to wait a full 12 seconds before Juho Raina crosses in the third place to round out that podium. Dylan Freckleton, I don't believe, is going to be near close enough to Steve Bycroft. Steve will hold on to that 6th as long as he can navigate through the final chicane.
Oh, and I don't think we saw it, but Dylan went sideways through that last chicane. He gave it his all. It wasn't meant to be. Instead, we've jumped back to this battle between Olsen and Knesny. Before it was with Paul Williams, but Williams trying to pull away. This is a good run from Peter. Could he do it?
I think certainly this is going to provide an opportunity, although it looks like John Olsen might be getting pulled along just a little bit from the draft. We'll see if this white and blue car can make a move down to the inside. He shows the nose. He sends it in way deep. Can he get the car stopped? No.
And John Olsen, to his credit, saw that happening. He let him have the space, let him fly through, and said, thanks, I'll have that 12th place right back where he will finish. Behind them, a little bit of a battle between Banker, West, and Hoglar, and it looks like Banker will take 14th.
It's going to round pretty much everybody over the start-finish line, and I thought that was a tremendous race, really, from not only the lead, but several of those groups.
A nail-biter up at the top, certainly, between those top two. We'll see how they felt inside the cockpit in a moment. We'll take a quick break. After that, we'll come back with the official results as well as driver interviews after this. Welcome back to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Our penultimate round in the Sunday Grand Prix Series sees Pauli Partanen take the win over Topi Kortiniemi. It says 0.3 of a second, and it was about that close for much of the end of the race. So you can see a few of our cars having a bad start, including Freckleton, unfortunately running into a few people into the first corner. It was Juho Rinne ahead, who managed to go by all of that chaos and get third place, ahead of Phil Reed, who we didn't really talk about much after the start of the race, where he had a few battles. Gernot Friesche was a top 5 behind them, and Steve Bycroft. Excellent battle there for 6th place, which he took over Freckleton, who finished 7th. AJ Roper, with a bit of a problem early, collected himself, climbed back up to 8th. And then Jason Clapper, 22nd to 9th, just doing his thing as always. Shady Ahmad rounds out your top 10.
Then in 11th place, we have Paul Williams, who really had an exciting day, up and down for the most part. John Olsen will finish in 12th. He had to deal with that dive bombing late Peter Konechny on the very final couple corners, who comes home in the 13th place position. Daniel Banker, another one that probably wants to forget today, finishes in 14th. Barry West in 15th. Pablo Rodriguez Oglar, 16th. Cam Porter, 17th. And then Miguel Moreland, your last car to finish on the lead lap in 18th. Ian Haycox, 1 lap down. Ellis Spice finishing in 20th, your last car to actually see the checkered flag in 20th. The rest of the names here did not finish today's race.
But Pauli Partanen did finish. She took the win once again after already having clinched the championship. Pauli, congratulations. Looked like Topi was definitely keeping you on your toes out there. I don't think I saw you guys any farther apart than about a second the whole way.
Yeah, that's true. Topi was super close whole race, and I think he nailed the setup. He had a bit less wing than me, and that frightened me very much during the race. But this track is very hard for overtakes. Like you need to make a mistake. That the guy in front of you need to make a mistake if you want to overtake here. So I just try to stay very calm and just be very smooth with the steering inputs and total inputs, and not to do any mistake. And I think I nailed it. I think I didn't have any mistake during the race, so that went very well.
Yeah, absolutely. And also looked like you stayed cool under the pressure, because we saw Topi get very close in some of the braking zones. Joey mentioned that he felt like you had to truly get overlap to actually try and attempt to pass. Did you kind of feel the same way? Did you feel safe that, he wasn't nearly close enough to you?
Yeah, I tried to nail that the hairpin braking zone. Like I tried to be very good there and focusing on that corner very much, because I knew if I miss that one, then Topi will pass me easily. So as I just tried to make it that work, and like I said, I didn't make any mistakes there. So I was sure that Topi doesn't really have the pace to overtake me, because it would have needed me to make some kind of wheel spin or something like that on that hairpin. But I didn't make anything like that.
I was talking about it at the start of the show. The Finns are about to take every single win in the season here on the broadcast races. Do you feel like you guys can do that at Motorland as well?
Well, I will skip it, and I'm 99% sure that Jukka will skip it too. So I hope Topi and Juho will keep the Finnish flag at the front also next week. And I must say I'm proud of my Finnish brothers. We had great pace this season. I haven't ever seen anything like this in Lotus 79 or even any iRacing series, that Finns are dominating this well. I think we had something like from P1 to P5 or P6 during the first race, so that was something extraordinary, and I'm proud of my brothers.
Yeah, in a series that does see a lot of Finns usually perform well, this is astonishing. Congratulations, regardless. Another victory, and I guess enjoy the week off next week.
Yeah, thank you, and most likely we will see next season, at least on the Notch Live. I won't do the whole season, but Notch Live sounds fun, so meet you there.
All right, we'll look out for you. That was your winner here today, followed up by 4th place finisher Phil Reed, who looked like he was having a chat with Juho, but he's going to talk to Joey now.
Yeah, Phil Reed, first of all, congratulations on the 4th place finish today.
Yeah, thank you.
So let's talk about your day here. How did you feel that it went? It seemed like you had a little bit of a battle early on, but then had kind of a lonely race.
Yeah, it had I think first lap was good. I felt like I'm actually keeping up with these guys. I didn't qualify that far off them, so I'm thinking, okay, maybe there's something here. And then just the next sort of lap after lap after lap for that, I just lost a bit of pace to them and didn't really have, just any real notion that I could keep with them. So I was like, okay. And I was looking behind, I saw Juho catching, and then obviously, we had a little bit of a contact in the thing. It's just one of those ones. I don't think it's much wrong on either side, really. It's just I think two people anticipating probably two different things at the same time coming together happens sometimes. Got away with no damage. I think he would have got past anyway. I don't think I had the pace in that part of the race to keep him behind. But then I picked up pace towards the end. I felt pretty good in the last sort of few laps. I was sort of closing and catching him. Whether he was taking it easy or not, I'm not sure. But yeah, not too much to do out there once that happened. But I'll take fourth. I didn't expect much coming in. So
If you felt like you didn't have the pace to go up there and fight, where do you think you were lacking it with the car setup?
I think like certain corners I feel like I've always struggled with. I think generally, like, compared to the top two at the very least, like I was definitely lower on the streets. Like they're able to drive cars, with lower downforce than I can. Like they're much more comfortably able to do that. So even if maybe they lose a little bit in the corners, they don't lose as much as I would if I was on the low downforce. And then obviously they have the straight line performance. So even if I was like with them, there's about a 0% chance I'd have been able to pass them. But other than that, I was struggling a little bit in the traction, especially coming out of the hairpin. And I don't feel like I had quite the commitment through the final chicane. I think that a bit of a skill issue on that. Didn't quite know how to navigate it properly. But again, I'm overall mostly happy. I didn't expect anything coming into here, and qualifying third and getting fourth, I think it's very good.
Yeah, definitely a great performance. I definitely agree with you there. And only 1 week left remaining in this season. It's Aragon. Are we going to see you next week?
It's Aragon. Well, I was supposed to do it last season, but I ended up missing it because of some reasons. But there's nothing I can think of that's going to hold me back from doing it. I'm assuming it's still the outer layout.
I assume it's still the outer layout,
It's GP actually.
Oh, it's the GP layout, so it might have the chicane on the back straight for you.
No.
I know that's no 220 miles an hour. I'm
Well,
sorry.
this may be the last time you see me this season then, because I can't drive the GP track. So
Copy that. Well, Phil, while I've still got you here, is there anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Same as always, I give a shout out to the Lotus boys, the CTC Discord, CTC Lotus 79. If anyone doesn't know about it, get on there. Really good group of people. Get good setups, which is the one that I use every race. Just a good community to get involved with. Thanks to you guys again, putting on another great. I'm just probably assuming that I'm going to miss next race. So thanks for putting on a great season. I'll be watching final race, and hope to see everything next time.
Well, thank you for coming out here and participating, and congratulations on the fourth.
Thank you.
That was Phil Reed, driver of that number 6 car.
That takes us to finisher number 17, Cam Porter, here today, who had plenty of action out there. Cam, we saw you in quite a few battles. In fact, in some cases, leading a train of cars. What was it like for you?
Well, I was probably holding that train up after being the slowest qualifier, the lowest rated car in the split, and just kind of starting from the back. I was surprised that I made my way up to 14th like early on, and then of course the fast guys that were caught up in incidents earlier kind of caught back up to me and were fighting me pretty hard. I didn't give up though, but it's a little bit disturbing how many drivers seem to think dive bombing is a legitimate passing strategy. But anyway, you slice it. It was a really thrilling race and had fun today.
So you were having fun at some points, especially down the casino straight, where you were trying to defend hard to the inside. We saw you shaking your head and even having some chatter with Ian Haycox. Everything good with everybody else now?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'll get over it. I unfortunately I squeezed Ian coming out of the hairpin. I didn't even realize he was there because I had an incident with Paul where he dive bombed me from like 3 car lengths back and almost lost control. There was some car contact, so I was seeing red about that, and I didn't even realize Ian was on my right side. So my apologies, Ian. But yeah, hope some guys, set up. You're fast enough to set up a legit pass. You don't have to dive bomb me.
Well, hopefully, maybe things will go better next week. The last 2 interviews said that they won't be at Aragon. You going to come around for the new track?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I will happily race Aragon. I will, again, I'm just going to try to, bring the car home, stay safe, which is what I did today. Thankfully, kept the car pointed straight. So I'm pretty happy with the result today, actually.
All right. Well, look forward to seeing you one last time this season, and thanks for the entertainment.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
All right, that was Cam Porter, finished 17th, which is going to wrap up our interviews. And we want to give a big thank you to the Lotus 79 community as well. Also, thanks to the team today, Joey, Robert, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media, our website, and our merchandise store. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment. Like we've been saying, we'll be heading to Aragon on Sunday, December 3rd, 11:30 a.m. Eastern for the last race of the season. But be sure to check out our other broadcasts. We've got one more today. The MX5 World Sim Series goes to Silverstone for their season finale at 4:40 p.m. Eastern. Until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.